All right, hey, this is Jesse with Create This. Today we're going to talk about how to hang heavy things on plaster walls. Now, this is only for plaster walls, okay? You might be able to apply some of this information to drywall walls, but there are probably better ways to hang things on drywall walls. This is strictly for plaster. The wall behind me, in fact, is drywall, but this wall over here, at least part of it, is plaster. So this is an old 1920s house, and probably 80% of the walls in this house are plaster. The bathrooms and things like that have been redone over the years in drywall, but most of it's still plaster. So when I moved in 2010, I needed a way to hang things like canvas prints or anything really on the walls. And I didn't have a good way to do that because all I had at the time was this Zircon eye sensor electronic stud finder. Now, I don't think they make this particular brand anymore, or they make the brand, they don't make the particular model anymore. But Zircon still makes some of these. It takes a 9-volt battery, and the way it works is you just hold it up to the wall and drag it around, and when it lights up, you should have a stud. So that works fine on drywall. I used it, I think, in my apartment before I moved here, and it worked great. But it didn't work at all on plaster, and the first time I tried was just a god-awful mess. I mean, I think I probably drilled like 12 holes in the wall. And when I finally did find the stud, I would like swipe this back and forth over the stud, and it wouldn't detect it at all. It was a mess. I was totally dumbfounded. So what I learned after a little bit of market research is that electronic stud finders, at least back then, didn't work reliably with plaster walls. They may have changed that since then, but I'm not aware of an electronic stud finder that works reliably with plaster walls. If you know of one, please do drop me a comment down below and let me know. What I do know is through all that market research, I found that the most reliable way for me to find studs in a plaster wall was to use a magnetic stud finder. Now, this works on a different principle. I think the electronic ones are, I don't know, they're either capacitance based or they're ultrasonic. I don't really remember. I don't even know. Magnetic stud finders, on the other hand, are purely magnetic. In fact, they are neodymium magnets. That's all they are. So these don't require any power. That's a nice advantage. You don't have to run out to the store like you do with these to replace the batteries. Every time you reach for it, it's going to work. The disadvantage is you're finding nails in the wall, in the stud. You're not necessarily finding the stud itself. So in order to use a magnetic stud finder, they're a little more complicated to use. So I'm going to talk a little bit in this video about the different things that you need to know before you can really dive in with one of these. The first thing is technique. Okay, if imagine that my hand is the wall here. If you drag the stud finder across the wall, it's not going to work. Okay. What you're looking for is you're looking to feel a little bit of magnetic pull when the magnet comes, within proximity of the nail. And I'll show that against a real wall here in a minute. My lovely assistant Tracy will demonstrate that. And what you'll find is that the stud finder will actually dip if you hold it right here in the middle. Okay, that way it can dip either way, right? Depending on where the nail is, which magnet the nail's on. And you'll find that if you don't touch the wall, you can usually feel a little bit of magnetic drag as you go past the nail, and you'll also see the stud finder dip ever so slightly towards the nail, okay, as it's attracted. So we'll show that in a minute. The other thing that you need to know when you're using a magnetic stud finder is you need to have a good idea what the wall looks like on the inside. So you need the ability to visualize how it's constructed. And I will demonstrate that a little bit in a future part of this video. The third thing that you need is you need the willingness to make pencil marks on your wall, okay? Tracy, my partner, is very resistant to making even the lightest pencil mark on the wall. She hates doing that. So it's difficult for her to use one of these because she resists making pencil marks. And the reason why you have to do it is because studs are usually vertically in the wall. They're usually vertical in the wall, right? But in a plaster wall, sometimes you'll have a stray nail. Maybe it just goes through like 2 pieces of plaster. Maybe the builders drove one in the wrong place or something and it was plastered over. You don't know, right? So you can't just take a sample set of one. Oh, I found a nail, that must be a stud. You can't do that. What I usually do is I will do 5 or 6 marks and I try to do them vertically. And if I can find a bunch of nails, and they kind of tend to alternate a little bit, if I can find a bunch of nails going vertically within about 1.5 inch space, then that's usually a stud. Not always, okay? You will make mistakes sometimes. You're guessing, right? I mean, you can't drill right on top of a nail. You'll go into the metal. So you have to drill vertically above or below the nail, and sometimes you'll miss. Sometimes you'll be wrong. So that's the 4th thing that you need if you're using a magnetic stud finder. You have to be willing to make mistakes, and you have to know how to fix those mistakes once you've made them. So the final segment of this video, before the bloopers, is going to be a little segment about how to use just plaster, spackling. You can buy it at any hardware store, Ace Hardware, Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. Just grab some spackling and a little putty knife and you can patch those holes right up, and we'll show you how to do that at the end of the video. Okay, so let's dive in. Number 1, proper technique. So here's Tracy demonstrating proper technique.
So the way that this works is you want to hold it really close to the wall but not quite touching it, and then slowly go back and forth across the wall. See how it grabbed? Boop. And it's not quite, probably have some thick plaster here. It's not quite strong enough to let it hang off the wall, but sometimes you'll even get that, or it'll get something such a good magnetic pull that it'll grab right onto it and hang there. But so there's another one.
All right, number 2, what a wall looks like on the inside. So here's a little segment with my son and I, and we have taken the liberty of putting chalk lines on the wall, and we will do our best to describe to you what the wall looks like on the inside. So this is an approximation of a stud. This is a 2x4, okay? This one has actually been flattened using a jointer, so it's a lot smoother than a real 2x4 would be, and it's a little thinner. But generally, 2x4s are 1.5 inches wide, okay? And they're not put in the wall like this. They're put in the wall like this, okay? So we can put this right over our chalk line that I've snapped, and you can see that's the width of a 2x4, right? So that is the width of the stud within the wall. Now, how do I know that? I'm glad you asked. So what we did was we drilled a bunch of holes, okay? That's unfortunate, but it's also, particularly when you're dealing with plaster walls, it's also sometimes unavoidable because electronic stud finders don't work, so you can't really see like the edge of the stud. You can only see the nails, right? So what we had here is we had a bunch of these nail points all the way up the wall. So I thought, you can see right here, if I hold this in line with the outside of this should be a stud, right? That should be going into a stud. That was the very first hole that we drilled. We had the most number of nail points in the wall, so of course we drilled up there. Well, it turns out that wasn't a stud. That was dead space, or dead air. So, what does that mean? I don't know really. I mean, these are clearly nails. Maybe they're in the gypsum board. Maybe they're not really in wood. Maybe there is wood behind, these nail points, but it only goes up so high, right? Like maybe it only goes up that high. So it's possible that it stops right there and they did something weird with that space. I don't know why that would be, but anyway. It's also possible that it's, wow, you got one to stick.
Yeah,
cool.
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We couldn't get it to stick earlier today. That's impressive. There you go. It does stick on the wall sometimes. It's very magnetic. They're very strong magnets. That plaster is probably that thick in the wall there. Anyway, so what did we do when we hit dead air? Well, first we cried and we moaned and we complained because nobody likes to make holes in their wall that aren't necessary. But well, the second hole that we drilled was kind of halfway between these two locations. I don't really remember why we did that. I think my strategy was just to go over by like a half an inch or something, or 3/4 of an inch, because I did see these other spots, and I wasn't sure if maybe the stud was like, canted a little bit inside the wall, angled. So let's talk about how studs are usually put in a wall. First of all, they're usually vertical, and when I say that they're vertical, I mean they're really vertical, like they're plumb and level. So what that means is you can take a level here, and you actually
I got it, sorry.
you actually level out the bubble, okay? And that's usually how vertical your stud is.
There's a bubble in this one too.
This is a door jamb. You can actually see that the door jamb is level as well. So that's a good litmus test. If you think, you've got like an old house and you think to yourself, well, maybe the stud has shifted over time and it's no longer level. Like they put it in straight, but then it shifted over time because the house shifted. Try one of your door jambs. If your door jamb is plumb or is level, then probably your studs are level too. So in our case, the studs were indeed level. So what I did is we took a drill, we put it into this hole. What we found was that the drill went straight in. It didn't hit anything. When we moved, how can I explain this? Because the stud is like this in the wall. So you can see it can go like that, but then boom, it can't go any further, right? So that's what was happening. So we figured there's probably a stud right here. So we drilled a third hole, and this one actually made it into the stud. And we would have been done at that point. I mean, we drilled that hole, and then we drilled our bottom hole for the TV mount right here. And we would have been done at that point, but when we started tightening the bolts down, we realized that the drill bit that we used was a little bit too large in diameter, and we stripped the screws on the bolt that was going in. So this one stuck, but this one's stripped. So we had to do it again, unfortunately. And we drilled this one and this one. And we drilled them with a smaller diameter drill, and they actually stuck that time. So I hope this helps you visualize what this is a chalk line. I bought this chalk line for doing like roofing and stuff, and I never really used it that much, but it's a chalk line, and you just hold it against the wall and you snap it, and it puts chalk on the wall, literally. So the whole point of this video has been, why would you want to use a magnetic stud finder rather than an electronic one, right? Let's use this on this plaster wall and let's see if it can detect the edges of the stud, because it should be able to, if it works, but I don't think it works. That's why I bought one of these originally. So let's just see if we can find anything. See, it should be lighting up right there as we cross that line, but it's not. It's got a crosshair right here. So it should tell you the edge of the stud, look, it's lighting up right there. It should tell you the edge of the stud is right there, but it doesn't. It tells you that it's right there, which is like a half an inch into the stud already, right?
Which makes it an inch.
And then let's keep going. It's still lit up, right? Like it's total. You can't use these on plaster walls. They just don't work. Look at that. Nothing all the way across. So if you believe this, you don't think there's a stud there, right? But there's clearly a stud here because we drilled these holes and there's wood. There's solid wood back there. So that's why you don't want to use an electronic stud finder. There may be some electronic stud finders that are, like they have like a calibration setting for plaster walls, but I've never found one. And if you know of one and you're watching this video, please tell me, because I'll probably pick one up and take a look at it and review it. But magnets work pretty well, but you have to have an understanding of the way the wall's built in order to use the magnets, you know? If you don't, I think Tracy did it once and she drilled like 12 holes in the wall.
That sounds nice.
I mean, you know, if you can't picture like what's inside there, then it's, you know, particularly because I think she was thinking that these X's are the edges of the stud, and they're not. They're never going to be the edges of the stud. They're always where the nail is. So, like this one is, where is it? Yeah. This one is like really close to the right edge of the stud, right? And these two, look, Isaac, these two are really close to the left edge of the stud. You see that? So if you think that the stud is only where these X's are, you're going to think that your stud is going down at an angle, right? And it's not. It's usually vertical. So anyway, I just wanted to try to clarify. I like to do tool reviews because I actually use this. I mean, this is what I use to hang things in this house, and I wouldn't be able to do it if this was all I had. I really wouldn't. So, you know, if you find something that works better than this, let me know. But for now, if you've got a 1920s house and plaster instead of drywall, I think that this is the best thing that you can use. So, yeah, anyway. Okay, and the final segment is mistakes. So we made a number of mistakes over the course of filming this video, and now we'll show you how to correct those mistakes.
What we're doing now is patching up our excessive holes. So these three up top and this one in the middle are going to get patched. And we have some all-purpose spackling paste. I'm not sure where we got it. Can't find a brand on there, but it's for interior or exterior use. I typically like a more narrow putty knife. I feel like it just gives a little more control. But this one is fine. We're really just trying to fill these holes so that the airflow, air conditioning and heating isn't lost. So what I like to do when I fill holes like this is kind of an excessive amount and really push it in there. Oops. You'll have a lot of that dropping right out. And kind of go crisscross in all directions over it. This stuff does not need to be sanded, I don't think. But you don't want to leave too much built up over the top of it. And you can wait and come back and put on another round of it. I just try to make it sure it's nice and level. This stuff doesn't really shrink up like the old kind of stuff used to, and you'd have to come back and do a couple different layers. So you want to kind of get sideways at the wall and make sure you've got all your little divots filled in. That way you don't need to come back and do a couple of layers of it in between it drying. I don't think it contracts much, so you shouldn't need to do it more than once. And sometimes you kind of gotta finesse it in there. Here's the edge to scrape it off. You're going to get a little excess around here. What I like to do is just kind of come by with a wet paper towel, damp paper towel, and wipe it off afterwards. That way you don't have any funky stuff to paint over. That's it.
So as with most fasteners, you really want to go like hand tighten first. You don't really want to, you know, crank on it with the ratchet wrench or anything like that. This is a TV mount, so it requires a fair bit of torque. But like I said before, we had problems with stripping out the top screw before, so we're just kind of trying to be ginger with it so that we don't ruin the mount again. And there's maybe that much that's actually going into the wood of the screw, and they're pretty long screws. They're like that long. Loosen up this bottom one, please. Yeah, there we go. That's much better. So there's like that much plaster in there. I mean, it's kind of crazy how much plaster there is. There probably should have been longer screws. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, it's pretty darn tight. I wouldn't even tighten it much more.
We'll go.
The ratchet.
We'll go like a quarter turn with the ratchet, and then that'll be it. We'll be done. Stick a fork in it.
Thank God.
Yeah, I know, right?
This project is causing our divorce, and we're not even married. Get married and then get divorced over
Just
this
so that we
shit.
can get divorced.
Over this shit.
Yeah.
But first,
All right,
let's
cool.
watch some porn with our mouth. Teeny porn. It's not a big TV.
I don't know where she comes up with this stuff.
I know.
All right, that's it. Hopefully you found this interesting or useful. If you would like to pick up one of these C.H. Hansen magnetic stud finders, I have a link down below in the description. You know, it's an affiliate link, so I get a tiny commission. Doesn't cost you a dime extra, but it just helps me continue buying cool things like this to review and demonstrate on the channel. Please click the like button if you enjoyed this, and stick around if you want to see some of the bloopers. We've got, my daughter is pretty cute. That's it. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. What kind of magnets does he use?
Nemo Bim remote control race car, and nobody ever has them. So that's the drawback of this. I do see the bubble.
So here's my son Isaac and myself. Shit.
Something level. Wait. It's not working at all.
Catch up, down. Catch up, down. Catch up,
Well, oh,
catch up,
I felt it.
down.
Somewhere over here. I went in the right amount. I went all the way, pretty much you want to go, I don't know if you can see that, but that's how long your screw is. There's my bit, and so I went about as deep as the bit is. And then when you're drilling into wood, you want to use a little wax to lubricate the screw. That reduces splitting and resistance and stuff like that. So we have this fabulous Ace Hardware. I'm too high. Toilet bowl gasket. It's good for waxing your screws. It's totally gross. Let's stick it in there. Wiggle it around.
It's just beeswax.
It's not gross. It's just beeswax, dumbass. Okay, but it looks yucky, and because it's for toilets, it makes me think about poopy. That's a little too